Well, thank you for joining the Chantay Golson Show. So glad you're here on this Thursday, wherever you are in the world. I am Chantay Golson, an entrepreneur and previous executive with a large corporation. And this particular podcast is simply to help entrepreneurs and established leaders, C-suite and above, understand how to navigate the waters of their craft, their business, all while having emotional control. And so this is for the purpose of preventing burnout and or overcoming burnout. Thanks for being here. Grab your coffee, grab your tea, have a listen, remove all distractions. I have a great guest today, and I'm excited to speak with her today. She has the ability to help us transform, and I'm excited about talking about this transformation that she can help us and or others in leadership move forward in their life. Now, one thing about her background is she has a company called New Life for Today, and she does consulting through her brand, Julie Court Consulting. Now, her specialty and background is that she helps others, such as entrepreneur and leaders, to transition and communicate through her consulting business with the 7 phases of transformation. And we're going to get into what those 7 phases are, as well as understanding how to have 6 phases or superior mindset phases to help leaders and business owners walk in their emotional and mental freedom. I want you to welcome, put your hands together silently, and let's welcome Julie Court. Welcome, Julie. How are you today?
I am wonderful, and thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you are here. So in your line of business, I wonder how many executives or how many business owners you work with. Is there a certain trend that you see from both of them that helps you to know what strategies to work with them in specifically your business?
Well, in today's culture right now, business owners have so many things coming at them with government regulations, customers that are being beaten from the sides, old emotional wounds and mental limitations that they might have fought through before because of the stress and the pressure, old things that are resurrecting. And so my consulting is personalized for the person, for their particular situation, because it is very easy to fall into a victim mentality during this time. It is very easy to experience a trauma that will take you under. And so I have 5 battle cries for people who are going through one of the top 10 stressors. And I think COVID is one of those. And so, yeah, so it's just whatever that client brings, because some families are starting to fall apart. And so many of the transformation concepts will help you to be a better spouse under stress and pressure, a better business owner. And sometimes business owners are being called to be leaders in the community. And that can be a new role for them as well in the middle of everything else. So it's personalized up for the particular person. And every business person, it seems to be responding to this in their unique way.
Okay. I think it's so interesting that you say old stuff is coming up and it's affecting their business, their productivity, their cash flow, and the list goes on. And sometimes old stuff can cause more costly operations than the actual cost of doing business. You mind telling us a little bit about that?
Well, the thing is let's say I'll take my divorce. It had the potential to destroy my entire life. And what happened is, as I fought through that, I was able to identify 5 battle cries. And one of them is that I will not let this loss steal anything else from me. And this can be very applicable to COVID, because it can seem like you can make it bigger and you can project in your own mind things that haven't even happened yet. Instead of actually staying in the fight and confessing every day for your own business, I am going to succeed, and I am not going to operate from a victim mentality.
So did this business come out of your devastation?
Actually, as I helped business people they began to refer people to me. So I have mostly a referral-based business, because when you help someone and then they're talking to another business owner, an entrepreneur, or a leader, and they're talking about their past that has really kept them from going to the next level, then they would refer them to me. But here's the thing, sometimes the things from the past are actually keeping you from being able to pivot your business, or things are showing up in your family and they can be so hard to deal with. And one of my favorite things, which I'll just touch on, I don't know if we're really going to get on into this today, but every leader that I work with, no matter if it's for the personal side, the business side, because they both go hand in hand, is the ability to listen.
Yeah.
And it is rampant right now with not being able to hear what's really going on in your family and how people are really feeling. It can be your own internal thoughts and words and emotions that are starting to overcome you, and you really need to listen, be able to communicate with someone else and figure out what the issue is so that you can take that risk, that you can, I like to call it, cross over that chicken line. And it's hard during COVID. And so I work with people on active listening every day, and they work with it with their kids, with their spouse, because if your family's falling apart, really hard to have a successful business. And you can work with active listening with teams. And here's the trick is, are you really listening to your customers? And are you hearing their messages during COVID and then going and meeting their need?
Yeah, because I know when you're in the burnout phase, when you're just overly stressed and you don't know what you're feeling, but you know you're not being yourself, a lot of times this can spill over into your customers, your clients, or whomever through irritation, through anger, through being snappy, through not being even wanting to be there, counseling appointments, not checking. Oh, just the list goes on and on. So when you talk about taking captive, or when you talk about thoughts, share with me, how do we take captive of these thoughts so that the other areas of our lives won't reflect what's going on?
Yes. So if you're self-aware, you can begin to hear where, my thoughts aren't really what I want them to be. So what my 3 steps for taking a thought captive is, first of all, evaluating where is this thought coming from. Is it coming from an unmet need, an unhealed hurt, or an unmet expectation? Those are 3 things. And I talk to them about clients all the time, because customers can hurt you, your employees can hurt you, your family can hurt you, and you can have unhealed hurts, unmet needs, and unmet expectations. And then we, in our own mind, we're the ones who start to get off. And so when you get, first of all, is identifying a thought and then evaluating. And here's the decision is, do I want to repeat this thought? Is it something that I want to consciously repeat because it's a good one, or it's a necessary one? Or is this something that I need to reject and replace? But here's the thing. We can say we're going to reject and replace it all the time, but it's really the 3rd step. And so that is the actual replacement. And this is where I take ownership and responsibility of my own thought. And so it kind of sounds like this, like, let's just take a really simple one let's just take one that's ridiculous that everyone probably has had to battle with sometime in their life. I'm just not smart enough to figure this out. Okay. And so it's something where you're confessing over your own life, where you would actually say out loud, because your own voice, there's something about hearing your own voice talk to yourself, and to be able to take, words are more powerful than thoughts. That's what I want to say. And so that's why I tell people to say it out loud. And then I say, I reject the thought. I reject the lie that I am not smart enough to figure this out. I reject the lie that I can't do it. Whatever it is that you're struggling with right then. And now here's where you really have to start to get in and do the personal battle. I refuse to cooperate with that thought. Because when that thought is sabotaging the behavior that you want, the thing is, It's actually like putting off a really bad relationship. It's kind of like when you shut the door on that relationship and you take the contact out of your phone. And so, but we have thoughts that are like bad relationships that we need to get rid of. And so I refuse to cooperate with it anymore. And then I cut it off. I cut it off. It has no power over me. And so here's where you start rising up to be able to cooperate with the thought, because here's the replacement. Once you do the rejection out loud, then you do the replacement. I am well able. I have creativity. I have experience that I am going to use. I have a team. I have friends. I have networks that I am going to be able to use to solve this problem, to pivot my business, to address this situation with my family. And so the thing is now you hear the power coming out. Now you have the authority coming out. Now you have the responsibility for what you are going to do. And that energy is going to push you forward in being able to pivot during COVID.
You know, one thing that comes to my mind that I hear a lot, and really people are starting to zone in on it, who help entrepreneurs or leaders, is that, does emotions have a place in the workplace? Do emotions have a place in the workplace? Because what I find is that leaders, entrepreneurs sometimes get into this zone of feeling prideful. Nobody can know that I'm experiencing anything. I can't let my staff know that I'm vulnerable. I can't let them see me break down or et cetera. So what's your take on emotions in the workplace?
Well, my take on emotions on the workplace is, number one, that people are really looking for an authentic person. They want to work for a human being. People want to do business with a human being. And now I'm not saying that we air all of our dirty laundry of every single thing that we're struggling with, but if we don't actually allow our employees, our family members, or our customers, if we act like everything is just fine and you don't have any problems, the thing is every one of your customers and your family and your team are dealing with the effects of COVID. And so I have a couple things that I try to equip my clients with. Number one is that you have to acknowledge your feelings and that you have them. And so I do that. But I have a rule, and I have a diagram in my book. I work with this on my clients. I talk about where I want my train of my life to go. And sorry about that. And I talk about my feelings go in the caboose.
Okay, so directing them into another space. Okay.
So I want to acknowledge them, but they don't determine where I'm going, and they don't determine our response.
Okay.
But I still live an authentic lived life. I still acknowledge that I have them and use wisdom in which ones I share with a customer, which ones I share with my family, and which ones I share with my team.
Okay. And then that's how you go back to step one, step two, step three that you were explaining before. Now, can this process of step one, step two, step three in shifting the negative thinking, can it be used with emotions such as anxiety or fear?
Yes, that is one of the most powerful things, is when clients work with me or when they implement the concepts in the book, they get a life skill that they can use the rest of their life. And so what I do is I help them to evaluate an emotion. And I worked with a client who actually was starting out her day because she was married to someone who was kind of a little sarcastic in their humor. And so every morning she would end up getting offended by his humor. And we worked with her on the emotion of getting offended and not letting that be the filter, that emotion being the filter that she was going to parse everyone's response from. So it did have to do with things that had happened, deep hurts that had happened with her past, but learning how to manage the being offended, learning how to manage the anxiety. And so we began by her recognize, first of all, we had to uncover that this was her number one issue. Yeah. So if someone's anxiety is number one issue, so the thing is then we would say, because we've identified it, we realize that, yes, this is something that I need to take responsibility for, or I'm going to live underneath the covering of anxiety my entire day. I'm going to live under a covering of fear the entire day.
Trigger from her husband. The trigger took place this morning with her husband being passive aggressive. Yeah.
Well, and he to him, that was his personality. Yeah. That was how, like, he wanted to start the day in a good mood. And sometimes it was about her, sometimes it was about something else. And so when she chose to say, I am not going to partner with being offended, I am not going to let that determine how I hear my husband. I'm not going to let it how I hear my customers. And so what happened is she actually began to say, something like, maybe she thought it was funny after the offense, the becoming offended wasn't in there. She could enjoy the humor of it, or she would just say, well, I hope you enjoyed that. And then begin a different conversation. The thing is, but the offense wasn't determining her response. It wasn't a filter she was wearing. And so I believe that this empowers people to actually get out from under the control of anxiety. Because when I continue to say all day long, I'm afraid, I don't know what to do, I have anxiety, I'm going to have a panic attack, all of these things. I remember when I taught someone who was continually saying this, and I said, I think you should stop saying that. You're agreeing with it, and you're actually prophesying that over your future. And she's like, what do you mean? And no one had actually ever presented the opportunity. They had given her medication. They had pandered to her. She kept losing job after job. And the thing is that what happened is she found for the first time in her life, that when she heard herself say, I'm going to have a panic attack, I feel like I'm going to lose control, she could actually say, I am experiencing stress, but that doesn't mean that I have to have a panic attack. I am not going to have a panic attack. I'm going to calm down. I'm going to not react out of fear or anxiety. And maybe I'm going to call a friend. Maybe I'm going to go do a journal in my journal entry. Maybe I'm going to put on some worship music. Maybe I'm going to make some declarations over myself that I found in a good magazine or in Julie's book. And the thing is, taking control of what you think.
Yeah. So when it comes to the importance of skill set development, how do you help? We're using this particular case study. So how do you help her to understand the process in this skill development?
We do role modeling, where we actually go through the steps with a pretend situation.
Okay.
And then that person actually works out those 3 steps. And sometimes the next time they come on, they will literally say, well, that didn't go well, but I was able to, first of all, recognize when it was happening. I still failed, but I actually was recognizing that it was happening. And I like to tell my clients a story, and I hope that we have time for a short story. But the story is that we change over time. And there was a man going to work, and he stepped in a mud puddle. And in the mud puddle, he got his shoe wet, and he said the next day, I don't want to step in that mud puddle again tomorrow because I don't like the effect. The next day, he actually remembered right before he stepped in the mud puddle, but he still did it. Okay, then that day, he's like, I did it 2 times in a row. Then the next day, as he's going to step in the mud puddle, and I usually tell this story much slower, but the 3rd day, he actually stops himself and withdraws the step and says, I'm going to walk around the mud puddle. The 4th day, he actually separates himself from the mud puddle and walks on the other side of the street. So now he's putting distance between him and the mud puddle. And that mud puddle represents that emotion that is causing us that this, whatever we're going through, is going to sabotage us. But if we can learn to identify it and then walk it out so we get the skill set of managing it, then you can use that skill set the rest of your life.
Yeah, so learning to really reconstruct your thoughts is what I'm hearing you talk about. And so when it comes to an entrepreneur or a leader and they're actually in the midst of the crisis, maybe there's an audit taking place, maybe there's one of their lead persons putting in their resignation, and they know that this lead person has really carried the bulk load and had the expertise. So then how do you still use the concept of skill development to help them through these particular crises?
Well, the thing is so you kind of have to combine the skill set of the limiting beliefs and the emotions with the replacement, what you replace it with, because here's the thing, a trauma, like in one of my battle cries, battle cry 2, it actually says, I will not let this loss steal more than the effect that it is having on me. And so what it does is, instead of allowing that to say, oh, now I'm not going to be able to run my business. Now everything is going to fall apart. The thing is you're actually magnifying that person leaving to be bigger out of the unknown of how you're going to handle it. And so what I call these is, it's kind of like a negative imagination that actually blows up the problem and infects more people. Instead of talking to your team or to your family, I don't know what person we're going to hire. I don't know how we're going to get through the next 2 weeks, but we are going to get through this. See, the thing is that you can either make it bigger or you can keep it contained to the loss that you're actually feeling. And then by controlling your thoughts and words, you can project a positive outcome, not an imaginary, I don't have any problems and sticking my head in the sand. And you can live that authentic life, but with a positive thought. And I talk about this in my book. We all know that positive thoughts lead to positive words, which leads to positive actions and a positive habit, which is a positive outcome. So that's why we work on the roots of what's going wrong, because it will lead to fruitful outcomes.
Right. So active listening, reconstructing thinking, evaluating your thoughts, understanding the root causes or the triggers that causes you to have thinking throughout the day. All of these particular concepts really can affect your business or your leadership, or they can help expand your growth. So one thing that I'm interested in when it comes to active listening or any of these other strategies or skill development that you talk about, how does it help really practically improve sales?
Oh, it improves sales because, first of all, number one, if you are actually addressing the problems in your team, your entire team is going to operate more effectively and you're going to have better teamwork. So I work with people on the 4 phases of team development. But how active listening helps you with a customer is, during COVID, what I am hearing is people aren't returning phone calls. People who are very, people of integrity. And the thing is it's because the stress that we're under has actually interrupts. We get interrupted with so many messages right now. And so the thing is, your customer is experiencing that and you are experiencing that. Active listening in the handoff of when the customer says something and you repeat back to them what you think they heard, what you think they said. Okay. And could you expand on that so I can really hear what your needs are, so I can really hear what you're looking for, and confirming that so that you're not presenting what they're not interested in. And sometimes if you actually are able to relate to them on a personal level, like in being the authentic, that you establish your trust factor when you enter into a back and forth on the active listening, because people do business with people who are going to solve their problem,
Right.
And some of that has to do with being able to hear their problem.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So being able to have active listening and all these other aspects helps you to have a better dialogue with your customers or potential customers, which then can bring in more business. Is what
And
I'm.
even yes, and sometimes, unfortunately, our customers right now, some people I'm talking to, I don't know what my problem is. I don't
Yeah.
know exactly what I need. You can help them flush that out with active listening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So active listening sounds like from your methodology is a huge aspect of how you help your clientele. You know, Julie, I appreciate you being here. And I want to know a couple of things. Where can people access your materials so that they can learn more about you?
Yep. So I wrote a book called The Incredible Life Makeover. And so I used that book, and you can get that at newlifefortoday.com, which is the name of my nonprofit, newlifefortoday.com. And I use that plus YouTube videos, plus leadership books with my clients. And so the thing is, and sometimes I use the Bible, because sometimes somebody's life, there is a certain concept or brilliant thinking in the Bible that may very well help them if they're a person of faith. And so I am a person of faith. And so New Life for Today. And then on the store, you can get the book, you can get the study guide, discussion guide, and what I really think is a critical tool for business owners is you can get me teaching 4 of these, the most important concepts in the book on CDs or DVDs or MP3s. And so that way the person can actually be, because you don't necessarily, some people don't love reading books, and some people don't get it until they see a person teaching it and get a more fuller grasp of it to do themselves. But many business people, it's like they are in trouble now. They need someone to personalize this material to their problem, to their hurts from the past, to their problem that they're having with their husband that they've had 25 years, and they're going to get a divorce right now because COVID has pushed them over the top. Like, I'm like going, I don't minimize past personal, the level of personal relationship either.
Okay. All right. So can people find you on social media?
They can find me. Yep, they can find me at Julie C. Court is where I'm on Facebook. I'm on Julie Court Consulting as well.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Court. Listen, folks, I hope this information has provided a wealth of knowledge to you to help you to understand that emotions in the workplace, emotions within you are real. And so how to be able to regulate your emotions is every bit of a strategy to help you to increase your workflow, increase your outcomes, your productivity. So guys, I want you to make it a great day. Check us out next Thursday. Go to our YouTube channel if you want to see the actual video of us speaking, Chantay Golson International. And so make it a great day. We'll see you next time.